I'm Jarin Blaschke, cinematographer of Nosferatu, and this is the Go Creative Show.
Hello and welcome to the Go Creative Show. My name is Ben Consoli, and today we've got Jarin Blaschke back on the show talking about his new film, Nosferatu. Jarin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I loved this movie. I really am just a really big fan of you guys, you and
Well,
Robert.
that'll make this a little easier.
I love it. Like, from the very first trailer I saw for The Witch, I'm like, I have to see this movie. I'm obsessed with it. And since then, every single thing that you have done together, I've just loved. And I feel like Nosferatu is even bolder, even grosser, even darker, even bloodier. It's just so great. I really, really enjoyed this film. And I got such an early screening of it. It was like maybe 3 weeks ago or so now that I saw it. So
Yeah, they've been screening it for, select people for a surprisingly long time, a couple months, So yeah.
It's awesome. And it's so good. And I hear congratulations are in order. The National Board of Review gave you a cinematography award for Nosferatu, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't that like yesterday or something?
It was a few days ago. I was in London and there was a Q&A and we're all hanging out after a Q&A. It's like, oh, congratulations. I'm like, I thought it was just a generic, good job on the movie or something, but okay, fine. Then it happens like 3 times. I'm like, what's going on? And then I was told. So that was nice. I was actually a member when I was in film school. I don't know why there were 3 like 19, 20-year-olds in how that works. But yeah, I had a friend who was in, and then, I remember going to these really nice screening rooms and seeing things like snow falling on cedars. And, it was that era. It was like 99, 2000. So that's cool. Full circle, I guess.
Do these kind of accolades, I mean, obviously you must be proud of yourself for being recognized for your work, but like, how does this type of stuff really affect you? Are you that type of guy that loves the accolades, really wants to hear the reviews? What's your style?
Well, yeah, it's a mix. It's like, I've been at it a long time, I mean, there's a reason I'm 46, not 36 when this movie came out. I'm very specific and what I was after, and that really slowed me down. But then I think the long term, hopefully, is, there's a long term payoff. Meaning I didn't go down some avenue. I mean, there were chances to go, more into reality or just like survive. That maybe would have taken me in a different direction. But yeah, so it's a mix. Like, when things seem to work, then you double down on them because you've been after this very specific thing, and then it pays off. It's like, oh, then, how can I take it further next time? I mean, ultimately, you're the only true judge of your work, and that's all that, at the core of it, that's all that matters. But of course, if it's recognized, then you're in front of more and better.
Are you a harsh judge?
What's that?
Are you a harsh judge of your work?
I'm a harsh judge of all kind, everything. But yeah, and certainly including myself, because that's the thing that I can do something about.
Well, you had mentioned just a moment ago that, you're 46 doing this film instead of 36, and how some of your choices may have slowed you down a bit. What did you mean by that?
I mean, I got out of film school in the year 2000, and I didn't shoot a feature for 7 years. I was just like I was just shooting. Well, first of all, I don't know what the path is. No one does. I'm asked this. I'm like, I don't know how to help you. It was not easy. Like, I don't think you really want to take 7 years to shoot a feature and, take 14 years to shoot a feature that someone actually saw. I wish better for you, so I don't know if I'm the best one to give advice, but, I mean, I was actually like the youngest person in my class at school, so. But yeah, I have a very specific way of doing things, or yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to hold interest in things that are like a little too far away, a little too adjacent. So, inherently, yeah, I just wanted to build a reel. So I just shot, crappy short films getting out of film school. I didn't know what else to do. And that goes on for years and years. And, financially that was, got ugly at times, so, I was like sleeping on my camera assistant's couch on Rob's first short film. He's my assistant, but I'm sleeping on his couch. It's like one of those sort of things. So Yeah, I don't. What else? What more of the picture can I paint? I mean, yeah. I mean, I've gone bankrupt and I've been evicted and I've had rough times with significant others, and but it's just I just have the horse blinders on. Like, this is what I want. So I don't want some version of it. Like, I have, so I'm totally delusional, thinking I could do this and be a cinematographer.
Well, when you're striving for something that is, it's not unattainable. Obviously, you're doing it, and there are other people, that are in
Sure.
great positions doing this stuff. But it's a difficult career, and
Yeah.
it's a bit of a moonshot. And I think you
Yeah,
do have to
it's I
have.
mean, it's totally ridiculous and stupid to think that you could get a job doing this. This is all crazy. If you really,
The
I
last
came
time you
from a
were
small
on,
town and went to a bad public school, and so it's.
you were up in New Hampshire, right? Because you're
No, that's
close to
Rob.
where.
I'm from
Oh,
Oregon.
that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, where were you from?
Central. Well, I grew up in three places. It's like the Bay Area, in California. Then we moved to Portland when I was like 10, and then Bend, Oregon after that, which is different than Bend, Oregon today. I'm sure you've know of Bend, but in the early '90s, it was a bunch of ranchers and a couple of retirees, and there you go.
And how did you and Robert Eggers find each other?
He just wrote me an email out of the blue in like 2007, just asked, trying to get he saw my reel somewhere. It was online. Because he was there to check out someone else's reel that apparently he didn't really take to, and then he saw my exotic last name or something, and then clicked on it, and then I had like three shorts on there, or pieces of them, and I guess that was enough for him to write me.
And I mean, you guys have worked together on. You said you do short films with him. You did all of his features. So you must have a really great working relationship. Is there, like, when he started approaching you about Nosferatu, which I know he's been sitting with for many, many years,
Right.
what were those early conversations like?
I mean, this is like 9 years ago, so
Mm.
it's quite hazy at this point, but I don't think the script was that different. I probably read the first draft that he was comfortable showing anyone. Um, and I think he soon had I mean, he's always early with a lookbook, sometimes before the script. And this might have been one of those cases as well. Um, yeah, I don't, yeah, what was it?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
we were
when I
bouncing
know.
stuff back and forth over texts and stuff, which is what we do today. I was doing it today with him about, some other look of some other feature movie. So it's this long kind of process of picking away at it.
Well, I guess to just kind of shorten that time frame, when you actually were like, all right, now we're actually going to start working on this thing. What were some of the early inspirations for it? What were some of the notes that maybe he passed on to you to kind of get your brain working to develop the look of the film?
Yeah, it's fairly early on, and I don't know what point this is, but whether that was 2015 or 18 or whatever, but it was it was clear it wasn't going to be black and white, and it wasn't trying to look like the original, which I think it's important that it be its own thing, even if it shares the same framework. So and I think for him, he wanted it to. I mean, for him, he wants to depict the period that he's depicting through the eyes of that culture. So it wasn't, expressionism didn't make sense for 1838. It didn't exist yet. So it was going to be a romantic, lush movie, and then that sort of led the way there.
Seems like the movie Nosferatu is driven so much by Moonlight, and
Mm-hmm.
Moonlight, daylight,
But
fire.
yeah,
That seems to be the common thread between all the scenes. But there's something about the texture of that moonlight that's really different when you're watching it. In some scenes, especially at the castle, it's very crispy. It's almost like wet looking. And then in other scenes, it's a little softer. It seems like there's a lot of attention being paid to this moonlight. I think you guys did a really interesting job of making something unique. I haven't quite seen Moonlight like this before. And I'd like to just kind of hear from you
Mm.
what went into developing that look.
Yeah. I mean, I'm involved in it, so I don't. It's probably harder for me to compare it to how other people do it, but um, yeah. I mean, when we did The Witch, we graded it on a monitor, and we only had 2 weeks or maybe even a week to do it. not much time. Now we take 4 months, but at the time we had a week on that little movie, and got as close as we could, and we wanted this very low contrast, almost like suppressed look. It's very gray, and the skies, there's no highlights anywhere ever, and that's very intentional. And then it goes to the theater, and we just kind of test it in the theater, and it's like you barely see it, and just because it's just a different medium, and digital projection is inherently milky, at least digital optical projection, not laser projection, so then your highlights are all, you're losing all that detail because it kind of just goes into mushy gray, and then we've done the highlights, so then it's like you barely see it. So after that, you learn your lesson. It's like, okay, so you need some, in a dark scene, you need some contrast. Like graphically, you just need hard shapes. So Nosferatu is just that, taking as far as I can, just trying to get the hard light as crisp as possible. Just to, it's almost like a lithograph. Hope in some cases. So yeah, so I'm going through pains to make that source as tiny as possible to give the crispest, almost block printing look.
Yeah. And was there anything done in like, were you adding any filters to the lens to remove colors or anything like what?
Yeah, it's the same Northman recipe, which is let's just kill all the wavelengths after 570 nanometers, which is green. So, or kills it kind of between green and yellow, I think. So yeah, so just because your eye doesn't see that at night, which is a little scientific for this movie, which is very what do you call it? I don't know, subjective, but it's I thought it was very interesting in the Northman. We'll see where we go going forward. I'm trying to work on something, for the future. It's a little more nuanced, where maybe there's a little red in there, but that was kind of a breakthrough for me in the Northman, was having I was shooting tests of night work, and I was just using the usual CTB and whatever, and it just sort of looked okay. It looks like a movie, fine. And then I for whatever reason, I had the light. I asked for the lighthouse filter from Panavision, and at that point it's all beat up and scratched. But just an experiment, I just put it on the camera and then shot a Moonlight test that way. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I haven't seen that before, and it was designed for black and white, but it's if you put that on, and obviously it's super cyan and it looks like a cartoon, but if you like desaturate that base image, which is only exposing like the blue layer of the film and a little of the green, then that started to look like something that had something in common with my experience in Moonlight, when your eyes don't see color.
Yeah, and you had mentioned in I can't remember which article it was, but I read something, someone was doing an interview with you, and you had mentioned how obviously the way that your eyes react to real light in a real scene when you're outside just looking at the moonlight, it's really difficult to recreate that in film because it just doesn't have the same texture to it. And you're able to see so much more with your eye than you can with the lens and with the film. And what I'm curious about is, who of the two of you or Robert, which one of you is pushing for the darkness more? Is it you that it's kind of just like, no, we got to make this as dark as we can? Is it him? How do you guys balance that out?
I don't know. It's both. I mean, generally, I just, he tends to be cool with most things that I propose. I don't actually know how much he likes this monochrome Moonlight. I think he's just sort of curious. I mean, he asked for, for Nosferatu, he did ask for a little bit of red because there's blood in it, so he wanted that. But it just like, that was more of a technical feat to get that, to get the sharp cut was easy. So I figured, oh, that took a month to have this filter made. And so then I send, I draw another like spectrograph and give it to the manufacturer. Like, okay, how do you make this? And that took a lot longer this time, because it's just like when you want to go more nuanced, then it just, quadruples the effort, to get there. So they made the filter, but I have to use it on a different movie. It actually arrived while I'm at a castle day one of shooting. It's like the filter's in hand. Okay, we can do it. It's like, well, no, I haven't tested this. I don't know what this will actually look like after it, goes through the grade and everything. And they gave us two versions too. One is a little thicker and one's a little thinner. So the blue comes from, unlike the original filter, which, the cyan comes from the coating. This is like the glass itself. So the only to control it, how much red you take away is like, is the thickness of the glass. So anyway, needed to test that. So it will be
and you
used.
got that like
it probably
day
looks
one?
great. So, essentially, this is the same recipe as the Northman, with just a slightly different grade on it. It's a little less monochrome. It's a little more blue, which sometimes I'm glad I did it, and sometimes I'm like, it's too blue. But that's how it is when you make a movie.
When we last were together talking about the Northman, there was a discussion about just slight disillusionment on occasion with the big studio structure that was around the making of that film. And
I mean, it's cool for
I,
me. I mean, I think maybe it was tougher for Rob in post production.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was sort of kind of his opinion of the process was that it was just so different doing the big studio structure, and that this film that at the time we couldn't really talk about, but it ended up being Nosferatu, was kind of a return to the way that he likes to work.
I
And I'm
mean,
curious
it's
if you have
both.
any thoughts on that.
It's both. It's definitely, look, when you're given, maybe I can't mention how much it is. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I can't mention. I don't know. But it's 4 times bigger than the lighthouse. You just have more responsibility. So there's definitely a back and forth with how many shooting days, you know and how much time you can light. In the end, we got everything we did everything we wanted to do, but yeah, there's always a negotiation. I mean, there's a negotiation on indie film too, because you just have less resources. So it's just slightly different. I don't know there's anything fundamentally, at least from where I am, um, that's much different other than I just have more money to do crazy shit.
Yes,
And
we
it's
had Alan.
we kind of set up from the beginning, like, okay, we're going to push it every time. So, when you start breaking out mirrors, like, and you're shooting lights all over the stage into mirrors, it becomes this like, cacophony of light that you're then focusing, and it gets really complicated. It's difficult at first, like it was in this movie, but you're setting a precedent of you know, what it's like to work with us.
um, what's the ratio of stage to location on Nosferatu?
I don't. Yeah, Craig could tell you. I don't know what it literally is, but it feels like stage is like 80%.
Okay,
That's what it feels
yeah.
like. I don't know.
What of the locations that you were actually at? Did you have a preferred one, or one that maybe was particularly challenging for you?
I mean, the only two that really pop in my head immediately are the courtyard of Orlok's castle, which in the end is 1, 2, 3 shots, and that's it. But we still built the whole door, and we placed it in a specific place, and you have to kind of light this crazy thing and do a green screen, and then we have the shot that's like on the lap tilting up, and whatever. The door had to open, and it was this huge production. You just do it for like 3 shots, and you leave. But yeah, it's just that courtyard, and then there's like Orlok's house in Visburg. That was actually shot at height, which I hate doing. Like, I hate going up like 30 feet in the air to like light a scene through windows. Like, yeah, that wasn't fun, but I'm pretty happy with it in the end. It's like extra stark in there, just because I don't have quite the amount of control, but I think it worked out in a nice way. But you really just see Canuck and the window behind him. He's crosslit. You don't really see much of the room. Maybe it was on stage. I could have been a little more. I could finesse it a little bit more and just put things on the edge of exposure. That it's like, I had a little fill light in the room at the usual level, but a lot of it's just like the haze doing the work for me, and just embracing that, hey, it's Orlok's house. So
When you watch the film back, is there a scene that you feel like you really nailed? Like you're just so proud of the way that it came out.
sure.
It looks amazing.
Yeah,
What
I
are
mean,
your
the first one's
favorites?
it's the that comes to mind. Yeah, it's the Crossroads, probably.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah.
that was a lot
That
of work. We shot it 2 nights because, I mean, it only takes a night to shoot, but it was 2 nights because the first time we were waiting for wind to subside, and it never did. So, um, and that's a lighting job. It's a big night. Exteriors are not fun to shoot. It's big clunky equipment far away swinging around. You set the light, and like, I can't keep an operator up in that lift, and then you set it perfectly, and then the light goes down, and then they put it back up without the operator, and it's like, it's always slightly different. It's just, they are annoying to shoot, but for some reason I've been handed a lot of them, but Yeah, but it's nice to have it turn out essentially how I wanted it to, So
Yeah. That crossroads scene, it also feels like the crossroads scene is when is when it starts to become like out of this world a little bit. It starts to
sure.
become a little bit more supernaturally, although it's not really supernatural, but we start to really
Yeah.
leave reality.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
for sure. And it's, I mean, the beginning of it is shot reverse shot, which is not, that's pretty standard. But yeah, once he does this, and then you pan around to the carriage, and then you're in this whole like traveling sequence that's only a few shots, but um, the transitions through black and this whole like Ferris wheel, shot structure of tilting up and tilting up and tilting up, and then emerging, at the base of the castle. That was kind of fun to design.
yeah. It,
And then
it looks
there's other like illogical language in the in the castle later too, where it's like you're panning through a hallway, but you're not following action. Which the more movies I do, the more I'm kind of try to rebel against simply following action. Kind of like the camera to do its own thing, and you kind of place the actors within um, a structure, at least for like these sort of uncanny scenes.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that. I think the camera movement in Nosferatu is unique too, because you have this mix of that kind of like traditional, the camera doesn't move very much. You're getting your cross shots, you're getting like your masters and then your close ups, but then you also have some movement that
Well, not
goes
really, though.
beyond.
I don't know. I mean, usually
Well,
it's a shot, reverse shot, like that's it, And then if you want a wide, then you start the shot and they're further away, and they just walk into a close up. But yeah,
yes,
that's how you do it.
I suppose. Yeah. I think but you also, it feels like when you're watching it, it feels like there's kind of this classical treatment in some of it. And then it becomes like this unnatural, supernatural sort of treatment where you're in the castle, things are getting really dark. But I feel like the use of camera movement's very interesting in this because there's quite a bit where there's no movement at all. And then there's stuff that the movement's very aggressive. And I'd love to kind of hear from you when you sort of deploy these different techniques and what is it actually doing to support the story?
Yeah, it's just yeah, kind of like especially for this movie, it's kind of the camera doing its own thing. It's sort of, is it sort of represent Orlok, and he's the sort of the master of the sort of uncanny domain, and the actors are just sort of moving within it. The camera will show something before, like he goes down to the crypt. He's walking down the stairs. We just like leave him. We're not like showing him. We just enough to see him go down the stairs, and then just mechanically panning toward the inevitable. Which we did a little bit in the Northman too. Which is all about fate and everything. But and then a hard stop, just like a harsh stop on the sarcophagus that's across the crypt. So it's sort of becoming his POV when it started as a wide, objective to subjective, and kind of going through. It's kind of, yeah, it's fun to have the camera say "fuck you, I'm the boss," and kind of run things, when you're under the spell of this force that has complete power over you. Seem to make sense.
What do you think that does to the viewer? Like, how does the viewer interpret that?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well,
We designed it. You
I
watched.
guess what's your intention for the viewer to interpret? Like when you say the camera just does its own thing, breaks maybe the expectation of where it may go. Is it
Sure.
in an attempt to make things eerie and creepy and strange? Is it an attempt to make you feel like what you're expecting may not happen?
Yeah, it's kind of like just grabbing you by the collar and like, I don't, what, and
Yeah.
that. I think that maybe is what it's about. And a lot of times, like what the camera's doing is not that unusual or unexpected, but it's like the little things, like the timing of it. If you want a wide shot, you move the actor into a wide shot. Like I said before, you don't just go to a wide. It's like, well, how do we make this more interesting? How do we, you know, um, make a wide out of the existing two shots? Like one of them is a wide, and then you want it close, then let's give them something to do closer to the camera. Do you need to see what it is? No. Well, great. They'll walk into a close up. Otherwise, yeah. And a wide shot tends to be lower, and they can just walk, and then it becomes a shot of their hands naturally, and then you can go up, or maybe they turn around and it becomes someone's medium. You just take a simple shot and you move the action within a frame, which I find a little more interesting and feels more deliberate. So it's kind of like the camera's pretty ordinary, but it's just the way that it's you're panning in an unexpected time. Why are we leaving the actor right now? That's kind of weird, even though it would have been a pan anyway. It's just when you do it, it's just not off the look. It's like it shows you what you're looking at, and then the actor, the character looks at it.
I think it also, it like, you never let the audience off the hook. You never let the audience like relax. It's always it's not a struggle, but you're like, as a viewer, you're always kind of feeling like anything could happen at any moment. I'm not safe. Something bad's going to happen. I don't want to be looking this way. I want to be looking that way, but I can't. So it's
Right.
it's a really strange experience.
Or maybe it pans just a little frustratingly slow, and it doesn't land softly. It's just sort of like kunk, like these little things. You just take a normal language and you can really finesse these things.
Yeah, it feels like there was it feels like there was a lot of that in the movie. Like when you're watching it, you're almost thinking, it's almost as if the two of you or your entire team is thinking like, all right, what would we do if we weren't making this movie? How would we treat this in a more traditional way? And then let's not do that. It seems like
it kind of came out of the Northman when the first email, he's like, oh, just, long, crowd scenes, long, oneers. He was looking at Andrei Rublev, and, like he just like that battle scene or just the movie in general, and having, just really distilling things down to less cuts, and then when there's like less cuts, then you're sort of, I don't know, it's just I find it an inherent rise in tension, as the cut is not coming, so it's that's kind of cool. And then every cut, it's like kind of jumps, you're starting over a bit, unless it's like a montage and then it's a flurry or something. But there's just kind of a mounting something as you're waiting for the cut for relief, but it's not coming.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your framing choices for Nosferatu?
Okay.
And how those particular choices where were they born? Were they born from Robert? Were they born from you? Were they born from inspiration?
I one day I'd love to do like kind of a widescreen sort of modernist, set of compositions. But Rob, it's pretty classical, so it's it's always symmetrical. It's essentially Renaissance sensibilities, applied to almost any movie. I mean, The Lighthouse, we kind of played a little bit with the frame, the up and down, but it's still largely symmetrical, and that aspect ratio is great for close-ups. But yeah, it's and we tend to shoot everything on a certain focal length, like being on stage 80%, like the lens was a 35 millimeter focal length 85% of the time, probably. Now and then, okay, we had a 28, or in our high speed set we had a 27, but there's not a shot that's wider than a 27 in the whole movie, and there's not a shot that's longer than a 40. It's just three focal lengths, 85% of which are the middle one, the 35, which is just wide enough to like block a scene and not have cuts and get enough context. If you're building the sets, like if you're on location, you're probably not seeing enough, but like, the sets are sort of built for that focal length, by and large. I think Orlok, the first time we see, the Great Hall with the fire and everything, that's a 27. Okay, fine. But it's almost always that 35 lens. So which is kind of a combination of having enough context to see where you are and get set details that are important to Rob, but it's still flat enough that it's like an illustration. There's not a ton of z-axis. You can do you can build a somewhat flat illustration. This is very much a storybook movie, I think, which is sort of his proclivity anyway. So over time we've sort of found that was the ideal focal length for what we're trying to do. And it's like, why add more complication? Why open up a whole lens case? And so really just choose a point of view. You don't have to go from a 24 to a 27 to or a 21, like all these adjacent focal lengths. Just kind of find your favorite and do that. be consistent. So, and The Witch had more of a mix. It was mostly a 32, but we're probably talking 60 some percent. And there's actually some, our telephoto shot, like a POV shot in that movie was like a 50. Which probably most people would choose 100 or 135 or something. But yeah, but we're getting even more. We're whittling it down, even further the more movies we make.
Yeah, and I'm also noticing too when I was watching the film, like it seems like some of these sets were small. Like Hutter's home was it didn't have a ton of depth in it. It seemed like it was filled with art direction, which looked awesome. But some of the scenes, especially like it was the friend's house where they were staying. It was like a Christmas party or something.
Right.
I'm trying to remember. And the tree had like all the candles on it and everything. Yeah. And I'm like, this scene, the set is so compressed. It's like, it's a very small, tight room that you guys are in. I think.
That's partially the lens. I'm sure most people would, grab a wide shot to open the scene or finish the scene. And they'd probably put on a 24 or something. But it's built around a 35. If you're in it, it's actually kind of what the room would be. But it might feel smaller than it actually is, just because we're not on a super generous taking angle, with the lens.
Yeah,
so, I think you see through the rooms. There are times when you're in one extreme and you're seeing through the Christmas tree room to the front parlor. But
but
we also
felt like
shoot flat into a room. We're not shooting 3/4. It's just graphics. It's an illustration. We're not just sort of this it's just straight down the middle storybook presentation.
Yeah, and when I wasn't even thinking illustration, but since you've said it, it does make sense to me, because it does seem you have a lot of stuff in focus. The room seemed compressed. I think a lot of center framing is very interesting as well, and it makes it feel old, but without making it feel like a throwback. It feels like it's filmed today, but representing old times in a unique way. Like the whole time you're watching it, it doesn't ever feel like a remake or a reboot. It always feels like its own unique film. But it feels modern and old at the same time. I don't really know how to.
We are making it in the 21st century, so inevitably that's there, and the cleanness to the image and all that. But I mean, it's not like people in the 40s were making all symmetrical movies. They're not. It's more based on like what's a kind of a two-dimensional illustrative presentation of this scene. That's what's leading it. And at some point it'll get kind of redundant and old, and we're just repeating ourselves, but working out so far. So.
Do you think about that at all?
Not,
when you're making a new film, do you kind of think about it in context of your entire career and the work that you've done?
Yeah. Maybe you're trained not to. It's just like, do what's best for the story. That's all that matters. You're just, now I'm going to use illustration in a different way, but I feel like, a lot of times the attitude that I've received is that, from many people, certainly when in film school and shortly after film school, is, it's this attitude, you're simply illustrating a page, what's written. But, kind of, the image is the basis of a film. That's, what I mean? So I think it can have its own, do things that, can't be conveyed on a page, just make it essentially, a film and contribute, so, as opposed to just, all right, so this says this here, so we're just going to go to a wide and then here, insert and whatever. It's like, well, what can we do that, is inherently, or is inherent to whatever cinema itself? At least reach for it, and we'll see if we succeed.
Yeah. It's interesting because your collaboration with Robert, each film obviously is unique in its own way, has a different look, blah, blah, blah. But there's like a feel and a mood and a vibe that you come to expect when you see one of your films. And I think they all deliver in their own way. As you continue on with your career, is that something you guys are really thinking about? Are you thinking like, and I know you can't speak for him, but are you thinking like, okay, this is what people are expecting from us when they come and see one of our films. We're going to continue going down that road? Or are you starting to think, how do we flip it on its head? Like, Where
Yeah,
do you
I
feel
mean,
like
it
your
depends on
career
the
is going
piece.
with Robert?
Yeah, I mean, Rob is, obviously I can't say a thing, but there's like two maybe things that, I mean, he's got like six burners going right now, depending on what studio wants to make, and most of them are not ready yet, and whatever. But the two that we're talking about right now, one of them kind of is going in a familiar direction. The other one would be an opportunity to do something, else. So
What excites you
maybe
more?
what's that?
What excites you more?
I don't know. I mean, if you go down this road deeper and deeper, you can really hone things and take an idea, and get closer and closer to perfecting it. Obviously, never reaching it. Um, yeah, and at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of ideas that I finally got to the level that I wanted to in my technique on this movie. And which I can perfect it further. Like um, the night interiors, I think, could be a little better, only because I have less experience on them. Like my night exteriors, I'm pretty happy with. The interiors, this was a deep dive into that, and for the most part, I'm very satisfied with them. But there are things that I could do better next time. That's an area for growth. Um, but yeah, I'd love to do a black and white movie, but not have it look like The Lighthouse. Um, so because that movie I barely knew what I was doing because I hadn't shot film in a while there, so I was just like, and it was also black and white stock. It's less forgiving than color, so there's like stuff I sort of figured out 2 weeks into a 6 week shoot. It's like, oh, I got to do this now, so those scenes are a little but so that would be that's one example of something I'd love to do, is do is whatever, a black and white movie with a totally different texture. So I don't know if we get that chance, but that'd be great.
Well, let's talk about those night interiors, because I've heard you mentioned it here. I've heard you do articles, different interviews about it. It seems like that was something you really were focusing on and working on
Yeah, there's a
in
lot of them.
Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just it seems like it's an area that you wanted to get as close to perfection as you could. So, can you kind of talk to me about maybe some of the lessons learned on Nosferatu about how to light, or how you prefer to light
Yeah,
night interiors?
I think by and large, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, the main thing I learned, I came up with like lighting ratios for the interior that in a test I thought look good. I mean, there's only so much you can test on a film. I do a lot of testing. I probably do about eight different rounds, or 10 in this case, because it got postponed so many times. So that's a lot of information, but ultimately, when you start shooting the movie, like the movie is sort of your evolving test too. Your movie is a test for the next film. Whatever, if with whatever lessons might apply. Going forward. So yeah, I came up with a lighting ratio for interior. It's a little different than exterior. Like the hard light, Moonlight, is a little brighter. In an interior, my logic there is that when you're in a room, your sunlight's brighter to the eye than it is because you're adjusted to the room. You're not adjusted outside. You don't have sunlight everywhere. You just have sunlight here, so that is going to read subjectively brighter. So that sort of logic. It's not that much brighter. It's like half a stop brighter, 2/3 maybe, but that made sense. It gets a little, but then some of the front lit hard light Moonlight feels too bright. So I just kind of took this one formula and I applied it regardless of direction. Maybe I would kind of treat it more like a night exterior if I'm looking at it frontally, and take it even further if it's backlit against a window. Maybe the Moonlight's a stop under, because I'm seeing even less of it as an edge light. Like this sort of logic that I sort of learned just over the course of shooting this movie. So it's not, but I had more lessons in night exteriors, and um, that's why they're a little further along. But by and large, I'm very, very happy with with like little things here and there. But overall, happy with the night interior work.
As you should be. It looks awesome.
Thanks.
It's funny to hear me. It's funny to hear you say that you went into the lighthouse not knowing at all what you were going to do. I mean, like that.
Well, I knew what I was going to
That movie,
do, but I didn't
or not
know.
knowing what you were doing, I guess, is a
Yeah,
different way to say it.
yeah, like that lamp on the table. Like I shot film for a long time, and then all of a sudden, 2010, everything goes Alexa. Including The Witch. So then, it's 8 years absence from like I, shooting digitally which and included and a bunch of other stuff, I go with a light meter or whatever, but you have the monitor there. It's like beckoning you and it's just like, no, and you're trying to just do it by the meter, but it is there, And so, and then, sure enough, when you got a tight schedule, like we did on that movie, it's just, oh, that's a shortcut and you can't avoid it, So to only have the light meter again, it's like, well, what does minus 2 stops look like? I don't know, And you do a test, but that's like one context, It's like backlit. I tested rain backlit. I didn't know what that would look like. So is it better soft light? Is it better hard light? There's a lot of backlit rain at night in that movie. When does it read? When does it not? Can I go more 3/4 and still read the rain? Not really, and that sort of thing. But just the smaller movie, there are limits to how much I can test. So, yeah, I mean, the first 2 weeks was an extension of the tests in that movie. And there's, the lamp on the table was just a lamp on a table because that's how we did The Witch. Just put some candles and they're lit and all that stuff. And then I learned that film has it doesn't have as much toe as the Alexa, so it drops off much faster. And then I learned that I like a little polish. So then I'll put a China ball behind the primary source. At a low level, and I just found out that's like -3. If your lamp's at a 2/8, then you set your China ball. It's just a little wrap polish thing, and that's it. At a T1, 3 stops lower. It's very subtle, but just makes it a little rounder, not too much, but still doing something. So things like that.
Do you ever dabble with any other area of filmmaking? Like, do you write? Do you direct? Do you edit? Color? Anything like that?
I mean, we grade the movie, obviously, and I do. I have my own photography. That's I have tons and tons of negatives of my own that haven't seen the light of day yet. But yeah, I think I'm. Yeah, like I think I might be. I suspect I'd probably be decent, at least at editing. At least micro editing. I don't know about big picture story, but I do see. When thinking of shots in a film, you have to watch them in your mind and at a certain cadence, so for things to work. So, but yeah, there's that job doesn't really exist, so.
Yeah. Do you think, are there any other areas in filmmaking that you might want to explore, like beyond cinematography? Do you kind of see yourself taking any twists and turns in the industry in the next 10, 20 years?
I mean, before I die, maybe I should just see if I could, I don't know, maybe I direct a movie at some point before I'm dead, who knows how that would go, but that would be, yeah, because I mean, I think when you design a sequence, it's hard not to think of it holistically. It's like the editing and the sound and the tone of everything, that I get, essentially the closest thing to that right now, working with Rob. And that's kind of why, because we're talking about holistically, like, how do you see this, sonically at this moment? Okay, well, that'll influence the shot, that sort of thing. So I got a pretty sweet deal, right now. Yeah, and that's probably, I don't work for a lot of other people. I'll try here and there, but it's like, oh no, you're just the lighting guy. It's like, all right, yeah, it's hard to divorce just lighting, so.
Well, we just have a couple minutes left, and I'd like to kind of hear, and I know you can't talk to me obviously about your next film, but just general terms, like what's next for you? Are you knee deep in the next production? Do you have some time off?
I'm being really,
where are you at?
So it's hard to figure out how to follow up this movie. I think since the strike, there's not a ton of amazing stuff out there, or the ones that I've liked are not actually going. They're actually, but yeah, I don't know. But I am trying to be picky because it's like, okay, so I feel like this is a culmination of stuff I've been sort of baby stepping toward. At least technically and creatively, all of it over a long time. So like, how do I? As to the example I just set, how do I make the right next choice? I can't do like a pretty good movie after this one when I'm, this happy about it. So it's just trying to make at least in some dimension, step forward in some way, whatever that dimension may be.
Well, Nosferatu is going to be out on Christmas Day, which good on you if you want to spend Christmas Day watching a movie like Nosferatu, which personally I would, because that's where I would be. I love it. It's awesome. I think I did like a little post screening review of it. I think it was something, I think I said something like it was so gross. It was so disgusting. I loved every second of it. It was something like that, which really is 100% a compliment. I think just the way that you guys handled it was great. I mean, it looks amazing. The scenes are really disgusting. It's paced so well. It's just great. Acting's excellent. Like you guys just nailed it.
I'm not seeing any signs of Rob getting any milder, as far as what he's writing. So
especially that last shot, the closing shot was just that whole last scene as the sunrise comes up is just fantastic. So anybody that has seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And wow, what a great ending to such a fantastic movie. So you guys nailed it.
Well, thank you for saying so. That's very, very kind.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being on Go Creative Show. And
always fun. Always a pleasure.
If you are listening to us, but you are saying to yourself, I just need to know what Jarin looks like. I need to watch him. I need to see his face. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch the entire interview, as well as a whole bunch of our other ones too. Jarin Blaschke, thank you so much for being on Go Creative Show and coming back.
Okay, let's do it again. Thank you.